Buonasera, greetings from the global village. Hello, 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 everyone. Monday night webinars. I can't believe this is the sixth episode, the sixth meeting, the sixth webinar we are running. So thank you for joining us even tonight, even for this June the 1st episode with a great lineup of speakers. All right, I see you are connecting. And this is Paolo Granata. As usual, we are live streaming on the Marshall McLuhan's Facebook group and the McLuhan Institute YouTube channel, kindly provided by the great Andrew McLuhan. Thank you, Andrew. Hi. And I see you are connected. In fact, feel free to say hi. So I'll be spending a few minutes to warm up and waiting for you to connect. I see David. Hi everyone. Hello. And by the way, David will be with us next week, next Monday. And Bob, welcome back, Bob. Hello, 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 hello. And of course, Alex Kuskis, the mind behind the the McLuhan Galaxy, and Sal. Hello, Sal. Hello, Sal. All right, that's great. Thank you for sharing your greetings. So feel free to say hi and tell us where you are. So, we are running this series of Monday night webinars in response to the state of isolation, in response to this sense of fragmentation. So we need to foster togetherness. So feel free to say hi where you are, and it's nice to again keep building our community, keep making our community well together. And by the way, it's nice to see that we have a few folks from the Marshall McLuhan's community and many others from the Media Ecology Association community. So it's nice that different communities of people, scholars, experts, and friends, of course, are gathering together. And from YouTube, because, we are streaming live on YouTube as well. I'm back. I'm back. Power blackout here in Toronto, Danforth area. So something happened. So we have no power at all in the neighborhood. Fortunately, I have still a little bit of a battery in my laptop and the mobile connection. So we'll figure it out how to move on tonight. Hopefully, let's cross fingers and the power will be back soon here in Toronto. All right, so but I can still running everything, so it's a little bit annoying that we cannot see here the power in Toronto. Anyway, so as usual, so we don't give up. Monday night webinars, the McLuhan Institute. Greetings from the McLuhan Institute, and thank you for tuning in. In fact, we are live streaming on the McLuhan Institute YouTube channel. Thank you, Andrew. In the meantime, I see John Caputo. I see again Alex, welcome back. Daniel McGowan, hello from Detroit. So it's nice that we are gathering together. Rutan, hello, Rutan. Great to see you here. I mean, we are here. So great. And who else? Oh, Marshall. We were talking about Marshall Souls in your street art photography. So thank you, Marshall, for joining. And by the way, again, all right, power is back. The power is back. So I will figure it out how to reconnect. In the meantime, here we are, Marty Friedman. Thank you from upstate New York. That's great. Thank you for joining us. It's 8:07 in Toronto, and we are getting ready to start another Monday night webinar to retrieve the Marshall McLuhan's tradition of the Monday night seminars in a new fashion way. So the Monday night webinars. It's nice to see friends and folks. In the meantime, I'm going to reboot my main computer here. All right. So I thought I was the one who had blocked out. No, it was me. It was me, Bob. It was me. And even in the meantime, so because we're getting started, we are going to have a very nice lineup of speakers tonight, of course. And let me say a few words about the next Monday night webinar. Firstly, save the date, next Monday night with... here we are with Richard Grusin, Andrew Mir, David Nosbakken, and Beatriz Polivanov from Brazil. So we have an international panel next Monday. And then again, so to keep warming up, let me just make two announcements. Firstly, Facebook users, hi, Paolo Granata, hi, but we don't know who you are, okay? So in order to show your name and your profile picture, you all are invited, because we are streaming on a private Facebook group. You are invited to visit StreamYard.com/Facebook, and in so doing, you can authorize StreamYard, our broadcasting platform, to just grab your name and photo profile in order to put it on the screen. Okay, so please, if you didn't yet, in the meantime, I'm going to reconnect it. If you didn't yet, please do it. StreamYard.com/Facebook. All right, we are reconnecting everything here. Then, second announcements. In the meantime, let me say hi to John. Hello, John. Great to see you here. Finally, you're joined the Marshall McLuhan's community. Phyllis from New Hampshire. Phyllis, welcome on the Marshall McLuhan's Monday night webinars. So thank you for joining us. and Kirsten, and many other friends. So, because we are putting together actually a very nice community of people, and a very nice community of folks sharing in this moment of isolation, sharing the same sense of togetherness and so on. We wanted to conclude with a grand finale we wanted to conclude with a grand finale the series of Monday night webinars with a very, very special day, which is going to be on July the 20th. And here we are. This is the Global Village Day, a 12-hour McLuhanesque marathon exploring the post-pandemic world. July the 20th is going to be, seriously, it's going to be a 12 hours marathon from noon to midnight, Toronto time. It means that we can embrace different time zones. We will start with many guests from Europe and China and Russia, and then moving on to North America, South America. So it's a global Village Day. It's going to be a global final Monday night marathon. Is going to be Monday, July the 20th, to celebrate the Global Village Day. And at midnight, July the 20th, midnight, we will cross the night to July 21st, so to celebrate Marshall McLuhan's birthday. All right. So again, it's a little bit done. 8:12. Okay, we can get started, and then I'm going to switch back to my original setup. So let me first of all introduce our first guest. We have four special guests, four special friends for tonight webinar. My first guest is a professor and chair of the Department of Rhetoric, Writing and Communications at the University of Winnipeg, and she is a feminist scholar with a long-term commitment to developing and promoting writing and language-based education courses responsive to cultural diversity. So it's great to have her tonight, also because she is well known in the Marshall McLuhan's community and the media ecology community as well. Well known for the two main books. One is called Finding McLuhan. It's a beautiful, one of the most compelling collections on to rethink the legacy of Marshall McLuhan in today's 21st century world. Finding McLuhan, a beautiful anthology, a beautiful collection. And secondly, it's a special issue on Marshall McLuhan and the arts. Is I think the very first exploration of a relationship between Marshall McLuhan and the artistic imagination. And so we are very happy to welcome into the Monday night webinars tonight, Jaqueline McLeod Rogers. Hello, Jaqueline. Jacques.
Hi.
How are
Hi,
you?
Paolo. Hi, everyone. It's a lovely welcome you just gave me. Thank you.
Thank you, Jaqueline. And so I'm going to, first, I'm very curious. Where are you now? Are you in Winnipeg, right?
I'm in Winnipeg, and we live outside of Winnipeg, so
awesome.
Close to Birds. It's called Birds Hill Park, which some of you might know, Canadians. It has a yearly folk festival in June, so it's pretty well known as a Canadian venue for a folk festival. But we're not having it this year, of course, but we have instead our McLuhan Monday night webinars. Yeah. So, and we have cascades of sunlight here, which is very nice. And wind. We've actually the most beautiful spring you could have. So life is like that, isn't it? We have so many things, so many terrors are actually happening socially and politically around us, but we couldn't have had a more bountiful spring. And we don't always. We sometimes get clouds of rain or clouds of bugs, but it's been very nice.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing these thoughts. So, are you because you are a chair of your department? What's going on with
The
planning,
department? Yeah.
teaching? We have been discussing a little bit about this over the past Monday night webinars. So, I wanted to get your response on this.
Well, I just called a Zoom meeting. We were laughing, the small group of us who were in the green room before this broadcast. We were laughing about too much Zoom, but we did have a lot of Zooming today, and I'm kind of hopeful it keeps people's spirits up, because you forget a number of our colleagues may be living on their own, and those who have small children have different sort of tests, and those the third group are have their feet to the fire right now, I would say, are people who are trying to migrate their courses online and push forward, myself included. And of course, you find wonderful benefits, things I hadn't expected in terms of when you're teaching a small group and you actually get to hear the students say, "Oh, that's how that works." So there's a kind of intimacy in the Zoom classroom, or it brings out a kind of a sense of closeness and comments that I might not otherwise have heard. But on the other hand, yeah, it's a challenge, and I know you all know that, because you're all in the process of trying to move from classroom settings to online.
Yeah. I think we are. I like this moment. We are learning a lot. We are experimenting. We are learning. We were not prepared to that. But it's moment to learn. That's why my question for the Monday webinars is what are the lessons we are learning, right? This particular
One sec. Paolo, your sound isn't good. I wonder, is mine bad too?
No, maybe mine, because I just restarted my computer after the breakdown. Let me see. Okay. Hopefully.
If I'm good, I can talk for a few minutes while you adjust. Maybe
I was just going to leave you when I do reset my stuff here. We have this whole question of the lessons we are learning. This particular situation. What are your lessons? The lessons you are learning in this moment.
sorry. I'm not sure if it's me too, and then I can let you adjust, because it's sort of sounding muffly, right? We're just if it's Paolo's microphone, if mine's okay, I'll babble for a second, let you adjust a bit. We're talking about the troubles with online teaching, or not unexpected bounty, and that's what came out with faculty today when we're trying to talk to them, and a real spirit of wanting to, not let's say go it alone, but wanting to figure things out and figuring it out with the students. So yeah, I think all of us who are teaching communication and language, there's a kind of challenge to it, but there's probably unexpected rewards too. Unfortunately, I think we're going to have to live with this and take it into term one. I think all of you are in the same spot, and then we'll have to take it probably into the winter term as well. But weird. This is kind of unique about Manitoba. We had no way of predicting this and no way of expecting it. But at this point, we don't really have many cases of COVID, and I don't know. There's no particular geographic reason. There's no particular climatic reason, and we're starting to see a little bit with the trucking. Some of the coming and going. There's some patterns, but we're not right now suffering the way I know some of my fellows here are. So my heart goes out to even you folks in Toronto. It sounds like you're on, Paolo. You sound like yourself.
Yes, hopefully
again.
I'm back. Hey, we had a power blackout here in Toronto, at least in my neighbor. So how much power is important. Electric power is important these days. And by the way, so again, Jacques, I'll be back to you in a little while. So we're going to finish the first merry-go-round. I'll be back to you very, very soon. And thank you again for sharing and being with us tonight. Okay.
Thank you. Thanks a lot.
And again, McLuhan Galaxy. And well, so in the meantime, let me say hi to some new friends who from Latin statics. Okay, Alfonso from Brazil, right? So, hello, hello, hello. Feel free to say hi, my friends. So, because we are a community, because we are fostering this sense of togetherness. So, feel free to say hi. Feel free to say something to the folks on YouTube. Thanks to the generosity of the McLuhan Institute web page, and thank you to Andrew McLuhan again for hosting us, and the Marshall McLuhan's Facebook group, which is a private group on Facebook with thousands of people actually, and it's nice that we are growing as a community of people engaged to better understand who we are, what matters to us in this particular crucial moment. And so again, I'm very happy that we are gathering together every Monday night. John Caputo, what does static become later? Okay. And then Andrew, and then Sal Greco again. So thank you for joining us. All right, let's move on to our second guest. I need to still reset all my things here. All right, so we started very close by, so Winnipeg is just around the corner from Toronto. Let's move to the other side of Canada. Let's cross Canada. I'm going to present our next guest speaker affiliated with the Faculty of Education, Technology and Learning Sciences Lab at the University of Alberta. She is currently a Matrix Research Council board member and member of the executive board of the Media Ecology Association, and also part of the Pan-Canadian K-12 Computer Science Framework Advisory Group. She has served as a pedagogy editor for Explorations in Ecology and on the editorial executive of the open access journal Phenomenology and Practice. Among many other things, I like to foster point out that she is engaged with media education. So the idea of how we can really learn a way to make sense of our media environment and conceiving education as an environment within which we grow, within which we create our human relationships. So I'm very happy from the other side of Canada, from Alberta, to welcome into the Monday night webinars, Cathy Adams. Welcome online. Welcome live. Hello.
Thank you, Paolo. So you know what? I'm going to let you fix whatever is going on. That was the funniest introduction, partly because I couldn't hear most of what you were saying, but I do know what Jackie was talking about. So I'll just say that I'm coming in from Edmonton, the birthplace of Marshall McLuhan. Paolo had mentioned earlier that he's hosting a 12-hour marathon in celebration of McLuhan's birthday. I guess he would have been 109, I think. And his house here is, I think on the centenary was received a special plate, and people can come here and visit it. I live about 8 kilometers. I guess that's about 5 miles away. Can walk over there on a nice day. So what else? Oh, it looks like I am the show.
I'm back. I'm trying to fix my issues with technology after the power outbreak. So I guess you cannot hear me well, right?
No, we can't hear you very well. So you know what? And it also gives me the occasion just to talk about, I know one of your themes is a quote from McLuhan, which I found in a few places, one of which I can't track down because it's at, I know it's at the University of Toronto. You have it in your archives, but in Laws of Media, the idea of breakdown is breakthrough. And So here we are. Oh, you're
Can you
back.
hear me now? Can you hear me?
Yes.
All right. So I switched to another mic. I don't know what happened to my beautiful microphone here. So, but I'm back. I'm back. I'm glad. I'm glad. So sorry for the inconvenience. And again, so we don't give up. Never give up, my friends, particularly with technology. And if you are an educator in the field of media technology, never give up to the technology. All right. So, okay. So breakdown as breakthrough actually was a McLuhan's quote. We started actually with this quote a few webinars ago, so at the beginning of the Monday night webinars, and I think it is very relevant. So the idea that we need to make sense of this breakdown, right, to restart to learn.
Yeah.
Great. All right, and I have another Marshall McLuhan's quote, but I'll be back to you later, Cathy, so we can do a second merry-go-round. So firstly, I wanted to introduce our guests for tonight. Okay, so thank you, Cathy, for joining us. I'll be back to you sooner, okay? Soon, very soon. Thank you, Cathy. All right. So, okay, I think we are almost done with the technical issues, and finally, after the outbreak, after the power blackout, it's all good, and hopefully, I'm glad you can hear me well again. Great. And so, let's move on to our third guest speaker, special guest, and third friend, of course. We have been crossing Canada, and then we moved down to the United States. And she is affiliated faculty member of communication studies at Colorado State University and a postdoctoral scholar and visiting lecturer in the Department of Communication at Boulder. Her research is placed at the intersection of critical media studies, media ecology, gender studies, architecture, rhetoric of racism, sexism, and anti-Semitism. Much of her work relates to the innovative communicative perspectives on media, intimacy, urban life, motherhood, activism, and death. And we will hopefully address tonight, of course, what happened recently in United States, the George Floyd's murder, and I think hopefully, thanks to even our next guest, we will be able to do more to address how to end anti-Black racism, how to make sense of this, what's happening in the US, the police brutality, and so on. So that's why another reason to be very glad and very happy to welcome into the Monday night webinars with us tonight, Carolin, Aronis, welcome.
Thank you.
Hello, Carolin.
Good to be here.
First of all, I do usually ask, so how are you? So how are you feeling right now? So what's your feeling? Where are you?
I'm in Colorado, Fort Collins, in the basement. Yeah.
All right. And what's your feeling? Are you teaching right now in this moment?
Yeah, no, I ended it, I don't know, a couple or weeks ago. It was great. Actually, I had a better experience teaching online, at least in regard to attendance and participation. Students were highly involved. So so I ended it, of course, it was all accompanied with some fear and feeling uncomfortable and not knowing what will come next. So I ended it up, and actually I was offered at CU to teach my courses online next year. So so I'll probably start to miss face-to-face interaction.
Yeah. Actually, I'm currently experimenting. I'm teaching a course online, and I'm learning. I'm getting ready for the fall term, and I think it's time to experiment without taking for granted what we have done in the past. I think students appreciate the idea that we are learning together, right? So how to manage this new setup. And I think uncertainty helps, right, to learn. Uncertainty helps to bring out that special gift we have to make sense of this kind of new situation. So I'm curious to better maybe later tonight to know more about your research and how your research deals with the current situation. We are experiencing, of course, a unique scenario, and I think again, so it's an opportunity, right, to make sense of who we are in this moment.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah, and I feel that a lot. Yeah, and I feel that very much what the current situation made us become very vulnerable. Our students are more vulnerable, us ourselves as instructors, but also as parents and friends and people that are going to the grocery store. We all became very vulnerable and very sensitive, and kind of sharing, I don't know if a destiny, but kind of sharing the same situation with people around us. So it does create a little bit of different interactions and meanings to our social relations.
You're right. Vulnerability is it's a human condition, right? So there's something good in the vulnerability, right? That can make us more humans.
Yeah, and technologies, I think in the past, we much used technologies in order to hide some our vulnerabilities, but screens and Zooms and me being able to see what you have in your house behind you and your Pinocchio and other stuff there.
Where's Pinocchio?
Right, I don't know. Sorry,
I love Pinocchio.
And my students' houses or places, and so we all became like much more closer, and and kind of getting a broader lens to the other people's lives.
Right. All right, we will be back to this, but let me first finish the merry-go-round to introduce our guest speakers, and then I'll be back to you. Okay, Carolin? I'll see you in a little while. All right.
Great. Yeah.
Thank you. Where am I? All right, here. And so, in the meantime, let me say hi to Mosina. Hi. And then Bernadette, welcome back to the Monday night webinars. Julia will be with us. Julia Hildebrand will be with us in a few weeks, I think. Great. And to avoid this anonymous Facebook users commenting, I think it's time to remind, before introducing our next guest speaker, it's time to remind that to show your name and profile on the comments, please visit, if you are following on the Marshall McLuhan's Facebook group, because it's a private Facebook group, you have to authorize, grant StreamYard permission to grab your name and profile. It's just no privacy issues, it's just a name and photo profile. So just visit streamyard.com/Facebook, and so you will finally show up with your beautiful name and face. So it's important that we know who you are. And again, because we are going to engage you all folks on Facebook and YouTube, feel free to comment, maybe keep the comments short, so we can bring it into the screen. And so eventually it's an opportunity to step in, right? So feel free to comment questions or any kind of feedback. We would much appreciate your engagement, okay, in tonight's discussion. All right, it's 8:34, and finally we move to our next and final, actually, guest speaker for tonight. It's a great pleasure. He has been teaching in the English department at York University since 1995. He's a writer, a poet, a novelist, essayist, and critic, cultural critic, I would say. His influential writings on Marshall McLuhan and Northrop Frye are a milestone in the Marshall McLuhan's scholarship. There's a beautiful book about Northrop Frye and Marshall McLuhan, and among many other things. He has been working with Marshall McLuhan actually in the 70s at the University of Toronto, working and studying both with Marshall McLuhan and Northrop Frye. I would like to say that he is a champion in the idea of the Toronto School of Communication. That from Toronto, that group of intellectuals were able to really fire the global imagination, and he is doing the same. So he's doing in the same footsteps of those intellectual giants. He's firing the global imagination with his ability in putting together poetry, novels, and cultural criticism. So it's a great pleasure to host and from Spain in this moment, and I think you will have to appreciate that it's late night right now in Spain. So I'm very, very glad and very happy to welcome into the Monday night webinar the great B.W. Powe. Hello, Bruce. How are you?
Hello, Paolo. Hello, all. It's good to see you.
Oh, great.
Yes,
great.
it's 2:35 in the morning here.
It's 2:35, right? It's 2:35.
Yeah.
So I hope you had a nap because before getting started, we had
I have a
Lamberti from
2-year-old
Italy.
daughter who doesn't sleep, so
All right, so
napping is
it's normal for you to wake up at 2 a.m. in the morning, in the night. No, thank you very much, Bruce. It's
thank you
great to
too,
have you.
Paolo. It's good to see you.
Yeah, and again, so I'm still making sense of the after we had a few technical issues with the power blackout here in Toronto. However, so great to see you. Firstly, where are you precisely? Exactly, where are you?
Well,
right
I'm precisely half an hour from Cordoba. My wife's family, my in-laws, have a farmhouse at the foot of the Sierra Morena, and it's a lovely place. We came here around March 14th when the quarantina became mandatory. Quarantina, as it's called, or the isolation or the great confinement.
Sure. Yeah.
And we had to leave the city because we were pretty much trapped in a small apartment and needed a larger space. We have a field here, and I have a very small Emily Dickinson-like room with a view of the trees and the hills. And from here, I've been spending my time writing. The isolation has brought a kind of concentration. And as my Spanish is so poor, I've been trying to learn the language, but mistranslating, and mistranslating ends up being a way of learning and also a way of creating something new. I came to write 2 books. One was a sort of extension on the charge and the global membrane book that was to be a study of melancholia in media. And then the other one was a study of the codes of inspirations done as a kind of novel essay. And I was using the library at the great University of Cordoba. The archives there are marvelous. They say it's haunted, probably by students who never finished their papers. And but everything was shut down, and
sure.
we were removed, as it were, from the library. And so I've been here working and writing and reflecting on things in the great quarantina. And many members of my family here are in the health profession. They're nurses and doctors and others, and they have worked long, hard hours. Now, Andalusia, the southern part where we are, Cordoba, is about 3 hours from North Africa. It is eerily beautiful. I was very struck by what Jackie was saying about Manitoba. The paradox, contradiction, the ambiguity of being here is that the weather the sights, the visions here are spectacular. These white light, blue skies, green rolling hills, and palm trees being rippled by the wind, and the sounds are sensuous and beautiful. But at the same time, the news is devastating. Spain, as many of you know, has been overwhelmed by what happened. The quarantina is slowly being lifted, but at one point I was making notes about what was happening in Madrid, and one of the most devastating notes that I found about it all, it was a kind of found story, was how they were using drive-through funerals. There were so many people passing away. And so we have had an extraordinary time in which there's a shimmering light and a panorama of color and green and greening. And at the same time, this terrifying news, and of course the news from the United States, which has inflamed all the images here.
Yeah, that's absolutely horrible. And you know, thank you for pointing this out, because there was a lot of course, concerns about the situation in Italy at the very beginning,
Yes.
but eventually Spain, France, and many other European countries, and
are all shut down.
Yeah, they were shut down, even with the worst effect on the population. So I think it's important in this moment to really do not take for granted how impacting has been, and it is still today, right? The particularly countries with a different welfare, a different economic condition than I see, for instance, Canada or other countries. So it's important that we do not forget, we do not leave anyone behind, right? So on a global scale, on a global membrane, on a global village, I will say, we need to think as a global family, particularly in this moment, right?
It's the paradox, contradiction of where I am right now in the quarantina, in that there's this intense awareness of what's going on around us, the shimmering of the greening around us here, at the same time as this horrifying, terrifying news. And there has also been talk here of a second wave coming in September, October. So frankly, we're not even sure when we're going to get out. And as the others have been saying about teaching online, I'm due to schedule to teach online in the fall for the first time in my life. Those some of my students, I believe, are online with us now, and they know that one of the things that I love to do, as you do, Paolo, is to be in the room with people. Mutuality of teaching and learning, and so that I learn, and as well as I hope others do. So how this is going to go, I don't know. I hope for the best. I will do my best to learn online. But one of the advantages of being a writer, I suppose, through all this, is that I'm a natural recluse. And so, you know, it is easier for someone like me to adapt to isolation, because isolation is more or less my way of life.
Yeah, we've been discussing about how artists, writers like you, actually, well, they live in a permanent lockdown mood and quarantine, right? So it's a permanent state of life. So, and but on the other hand, for people like me who run all the time, it was an opportunity to slow down, really slow down. One of my mottos is lockdown equals slow down, slowing down. So we needed, particularly some kind of people like me, again, to slow down, stop by and look around in a different way. So learning from this new state of mind, new mindset, new attitude in rather than running, looking around and make sense of what's around us, right?
Where we are too, in this lovely farmhouse, it's an old house. There are about 6 of us here. We live near the Morena Natural Reserve, so there are the sounds of birds. Since the airplanes, the cars, the trucks, all these things have disappeared. the sounds of nature have become so magnificent and so present. And one of the mottos of the natural reserve here in Spanish is calma, alma, alba, silencio, which roughly translates, it's close to the Italian, of course, Paolo, is calm, soul, morning, and silence.
Silent. And John Caputo from Facebook reminds, I don't know if you are able to see the comments, look and look again, either the saper, so look again. So we need to look carefully, right? And look again and make sense of this silence, of this situation around us, right? Great, Bruce.
Yes. Wonderful. Thank you.
All right, so I'll be back to you. I'll make a second merry-go-round with our guests, and then usually in the second portion of the Monday night webinar, we will be more interacting and so on. So I'll be back to you in a little while, Bruce. Okay. So
sure.
Thank you again
Looking
for
forward
joining
to
us.
listening to everybody else.
You can take another nap if you wish. Then all right. So because I do care about my friends and guests, special guests for tonight, as you know, I do always invite and engage my guests and asking them to bring into the discussion a Marshall McLuhan's quote to make sense of the current scenario. And because I think, again, in the idea of slowing down, we can rethink the way we interact with material objects around us. So I'm asking our guests for the Monday night webinars to find an object, a symbolical object, a prop, any kind of an item that can symbolize the current situation. So a symbolical object to make sense of what's going on. So I will be back to my Canadian guest, West Canada guest, Jaqueline, which are there. And Jacques, I will be very curious to know more about your symbolic object for tonight webinar. I think you had something there. And by the way, no, you have to unmute yourself, Jacques. Unmute yourself, all right? Okay. So I see a little stick over there. In the meantime, all right, Jacques, you are there. All right, here you are.
Yeah.
So what's your secret object?
I must be terribly literal-minded, Paolo. What I realize when you're describing such elusive and metaphoric objects we might have chosen, I've taken something quite literal, and it has to do with the research I was doing in literal ways. And one of the things that's pointed out to us time and time again about technology, and one of the things, of course, that McLuhan pointed out was the acceleration, how fast this is all going. And there's this small book by Mark Wigley and Beatrice called Lamina. They do a great job. Are We Human? I don't know if you can see it.
Great.
Notes on archaeology of design. Yeah. So what they work with, of course, is how the cell phone has changed so quickly, demonstrating the McLuhan notion that you can actually, if we can actually see change, that's an advantage we have in the sense of how quickly it will all roll along and happen. Well, it's really amazing because I'm young enough that I might not remember, 20 years ago, this thing would mean nothing to me. I'd look at it and say, what is that? So the fact that now our lives, if I lose this, I panic, how meaningful it is, what its function, its central function, but the fact that 20 years ago it wasn't even a thing. So I as I said, I've chosen something quite literal-minded. On it are 7 chapters of a book I've just finished, and I was delighted because this is something I've worked on for 4 years or 5 years, and it's called McLuhan's Technosensorium City. Lexington Press, they were ready to bring it forward. And then this is a talk about the stillness that we're getting acclimatized to. I rushed for my May 1st deadline, and lo and behold, there was no answer back. And then you realize that rather than panicking for your own selfish personal reasons, because of course one does, of course I did, the other recognition is, well, what is happening to those people in Maryland and Washington that they're not answering to? So I realized that, as disappointing as it might be for me, because I was really counting on this event. And again, I bring it back to my USB. It's on the USB. And I had actually good news today that presses are apparently rolling again, but it has to do with this kind of requiem for the kind of research and the expectations we've had. And a lot of the things that we've done and expected and even felt were kind of contractual obligations of our own job on our end, and then contractual obligations, what they owe us when we sign.
Yeah.
So much of all of that just went through a sieve or a net. So that's kind of the observation I've been actually trying not to deal with, because I think it's very painful for those of us who have so lived for and loved that kind of traditional generated research that eventuated in publication. To see some of that structure crumble has been really difficult. Yeah.
All right, so thank you for sharing your secret object, and let's see if we can find the fil rouge, a link to another object from for instance, Cathy. I was wondering what's your object. I saw that, so that's why I was wondering why that's such a symbolical object. Why it's your companion for the lockdown or for this moment. So why did you choose a hammer?
Well, a hammer is always my companion, I have to say, but I think it's just completely apropos of this particular moment. One of the reasons I have the hammer, I used to travel with it, and that became harder with all security. And at this point, most people can't travel, but it has to do with, again, that quote that you pulled up, which is breakdown as breakthrough, and this special moment that we're in, that when we break through to break something, which hammers can do. And in fact, this is how Heidegger described it. This is how McLuhan described it. We break through, shatter what is taken for granted in our lives, and we have this opportunity to be set on a new path. And I think we're each experiencing this differently in our lives right now. I was really struck by, and there's a good word for hammers, what Bruce was saying about this experience of this writerly moment for some of us, but I have to say that has not been my experience at all. I'm not a healthcare worker. I'm not on the front lines, but I have. It's got something to do with this demand that is possible with our current technological environment that allows this continuous interruption. I'm also teaching right now, and there are moments to reflect, and it is very different not leaving my home other than to get groceries or for a walk. But the important part in all of this, in this moment of breakdown, is about, for me, reevaluating our lives. It's a unique moment, one that I think we desperately need globally. And it almost feels like a trial run to me. How are we going to deal with these large issues? And so here we are. And can we use this moment, as you're doing, Paolo, to bring us together as a community in different ways to make use of these technologies, but also perhaps thinking about how, on one hand, they're allowing us these new possibilities of staying in communication with us, but at the same time, actually, there's I don't know how many of you have seen. It wasn't a blockbuster, but it had Jake Gyllenhaal in it, called a movie called Demolition, and he's struggling with the death of his wife. And at some point in the film, he goes in with a big hammer, a giant sledgehammer, and starts just knocking down the house. And it's a really key moment in terms of finding a new, dislodging his current life so that he can find a new lodge in his life. And I think we need that sometimes. It's a tragedy that we maybe need a crisis like this, but I hope we can take advantage of it.
Yeah, I agree. I totally agree. And by the way, Sal is saying hammer is perfect for breaking down and building up. So it's, I think,
nice, wonderful.
Right?
I love it.
Building up, and again, I'm glad you brought it up because I think even this series of Monday night webinars or any other initiatives are nothing but an attempt to answer one fundamental question, I think, which is what makes us humans, what makes us human, right? So how we can learn about our own, the deepest humanity, right, that we can learn. And the state of the global crisis we are experimenting, the financial crisis we are going to experiment, and so on, I think is an opportunity for finding a way to answer that fundamental question: what makes us human? And in fact, for instance, getting together, talking, dialogue, fostering dialogue, fostering this sense of togetherness is what makes us human, right?
Yes. Yeah.
So thank you for sharing your hammer to break it down and build up.
Build up. Love it.
And at this stage, we are going to explore the other objects from our other guest speakers. Carolin, did you get an object? Did you have yours? Yes.
Yeah. Actually, I was thinking which one to share, and
it's up to you. It's up to you. Just one is enough.
No, I'm going to share two. Yeah.
Okay, two. Why not? Two
one is this that while thinking what I would like to share, this just stood in front of my eyes, and I thought to myself, okay, I should show this. This is called Happy Light. And for people that are in basements like me or in lockdown, it brings or mimic light, seemingly like sunlight, into the room.
No, really?
People,
it's LED light.
It's kind of this. So maybe I should show you. It's not. It doesn't look to me as like a happy one, but let me show you.
In the meantime, from David Nosbacken, we have a quote on art is not a mirror, but a hammer. Oh, wow.
I'm not sure about this. I actually don't use it a lot, but people on the web insist that it makes them feel happy as they miss the sunlight. But I actually wanted to share this.
Which is, hold on. Let me see if I can, sorry. It looks like a key.
Yeah,
holder.
This is just the key to my office at CU Boulder. And I actually really miss my office and using this key and having this key in my pocket. And you talked about what it means to be human. I think the ability to take a key and open a door, and we don't use doors so much, as we don't need to go out as much as we used to be. And maybe this current situation will teach us how to open different doors. But our regular doors are starting to feel unusable. And the concept of having in the day some travel and movement, this is something that I miss. And changing spaces and having my own space, but in different places, this is what I miss.
Yeah.
And so also, that's my real object. my key.
I like that. I like the key and the door as a threshold to something else, right? As the interface between the private world of our home and the public world outside out there. So you have to cross that interface, that threshold. So I think, particularly in this moment,
and you know that, the part of my very serious project is about liminal architecture and the concept of balconies, doors, windows, porches as creating a relationship between home and street. And within the coronavirus, I actually was contacted by a journalist from Italy asking me, what do you think about coronavirus time and balconies in Italy? So, so I first of all decided to lift it up into a project. So I have another article to write because I think the whole concept of balconies and resiliency in coronavirus time, especially in Europe and also in Israel, create a very interesting understanding of practically architecture, media, and community.
And I think architecture, so as a conceptual design, will be deeply affected by the way to rethink, right, how people interact. How maybe we will have a new kind of theaters, new kind of arenas, new kind of social spaces to be redesigned as in response to this unexpected situation we are experiencing. So the idea of a liminal architecture, I think, it will be very relevant, particular to in today. And the balconies in Italy, you were a liminal.
Yeah, I can hear you well, Paolo. And
what's going on? No, I mean the balconies were.
Yeah, and I think
Go ahead.
I think that as due to wartime, people or all sorts of designers and architects started to add shelters in homes. I think because of coronavirus times, porches and balconies will be added or will be required as they became the breathing tool or breathing technology for current situation. But I'll talk more about this when I'll talk about my quote.
All right. Yeah. Yes. Thank you for reminding. We have a quote for making sense of this. Hopefully you can hear me well. So tonight we are facing a few technical issues. Okay. So thank you, Carolin. Thank you again. And let's go back to Cordoba and Spain and see. Bruce, do you have your own special object to make sense of this? And yeah, go ahead. Let us see.
I like Carolin, I have two. And one of them may look familiar to you. It's called a book. And it's
the most powerful technology ever invented.
And because in the quarantina, concentration comes with the isolation, I've been reading Gongora, who for me was a complete mystery, very difficult for me to understand. And Gongora has become a kind of guideline for me, a guide voice, almost like a spirit walker. He came to Cordoba during the plague and ended up living in a farmhouse, I gather not far from here, and wrote very obscure verse. But one of the lines that has stuck with me is that we're on an unstable bridge between shifting shorelines over wildly turbulent waves. And it seems to me that that's the most apt metaphor I could find for what's going on. Wow. The Sufis say, beware of building a house on a bridge. And it seems to me that this is where we are. The other technology that I have with me is this. It's not a hockey puck. It is it looks like Alexa.
Oh, Alexa.
And Alexa has been a great gift to me, because I'm not only something of a natural recluse, but also more oral than visual. So the sounds that have been pouring from her from all around the world, from Cape Town, from New Jersey, I heard Bruce Springsteen's live broadcast from his living room, to the various voices that have been witnessing what's going on in the United States and in Europe, to the extraordinary soundtracks, the music, to recitations. I found Jack Kerouac and Dylan Thomas reading.
Wow.
So the voices here have been coming from the air, and it's like a counter transmission to the transmission that is infecting us. And so much of one of the most beautiful statements I've heard came from Alexa, which was from what I think is one of the great radio stations in the world, which is from Cape Town. And it's called All Jazz. And it's, as it suggests, is an all jazz program, but it's much more complex and far-reaching, wide-ranging than that would suggest, than that the name suggests. And the digital turntable DJ at one point said, "Love, kindness, courtesy, empathy, patience must push back to all the hate, anger, frustration, anxiety." And he said that is the vital vibe that has to be the counter transmission. And I thought that those are the truest words that one could say at this point, because I very much appreciate everything that Cathy and Carolin and Jackie are saying. They're saying beautiful things. I wish I could have more precise things to say about what I think is going to happen, but I don't know. We're in the midst of something that's so unprecedented.
Yeah.
And that's why the Gongora remark is so beautiful. There's another one too that I'd like to share with all of you. It comes from Ibn Arabi, who is a great Sufi philosopher who came from this area as well. And he talked about the great need for unlettering, a phrase that I wrestled with for a long time. But it finally dawned on me that unlettering is very close to the McLuhan notion of percept over concept.
Over concept.
Yes, that before you theorize, before you categorize, before you conceptualize, before you try to articulate a grand scheme, just try to see what's going on. And that is enormously difficult when our eyes are misted over by the clouds that are around us, and also misted over by mourning and loss, tears.
Yeah. Now that's very meaningful. Yeah, so I think I completely agree. We are living this particular moment with our perception rather than cognition. So, okay, you can rationalize, you can try to understand, but perception really matters today to digest, to make sense.
And as I was saying earlier, that I had come here with the intentions in January of working on those two manuscripts that I referred to. I abandoned both of them because they were overpowered by what was going on. They didn't seem relevant, and I will go back to them someday. But at the moment, they were not the vital things. And so instead, instead of theory or conceptualization, I'm in mystery and mysteria, trying to write something that captures the unlettering that I think is occurring to us. I have great hope for what's going on, but great concern. Many intellectuals pre-World War I, and I see this in some of my colleagues and friends, I'm sorry to say, saying that they think great things will come out of this. Maybe, I hope. But I should point out that Freud and Thomas Mann and many others welcomed, and Hermann Hesse, who I revere, who was a great pacifist, welcomed World War I because they thought it would sweep away the old, that it would destroy the old structures of aristocracy and corrupt government and capital and class structures. All of them were horrified by what the war brought, and of course backed away from their original comments. And eventually, as we know, they became very powerful opponents of militarism and blatant economy manipulation and exploitation. But that's why I'm a little evasive about saying what might happen, because I don't know.
Yeah.
At the moment, here at 3 o'clock in the morning, what I hear outside are the dogs howling.
In silence, right? The silence
and around the dogs are howling, and then it's quiet.
Wow. No, I really can imagine. And I like to, I did prepare a few visuals, actually from your book, The Charge in the Global Membrane. And I wanted to show a few visuals from Marshall
Solus, yes, my great collaborator and friend. And
saw you. And
I couldn't have, the book wouldn't have been able to have its presence without Marshall. He's aptly named Solus.
Yeah, and I have a few other. Here it is. I like this one. I call it the Muse. I don't know what's the original name. It inspires me like a muse, like. And again, we have been, and this one as well. So beautiful street art, I think from Spain or from other cities.
Yeah, Barcelona and Havana and many places, yes.
Yeah, and I like street art because street art is silently loud. So it's there, it's silent, it's in the background, it's in the ground, but it speaks to us. So I like the juxtaposition between the idea of the street art. It's all around us. It's a form of urban expression. It speaks to us when we need it. So thank you, Marshall, by the way, for sharing your pictures. And those pictures are actually a companion for the Charge in the Global Membrane. We've been talking about this book last June, right? Last year at the Media Ecology Annual Convention. And again, so it's great that we are reflecting on how to rewire the global membrane, how to reconnect the global membrane after the situation. So nobody knows how to, but again.
Well, if I may quickly share a story, I don't want to steal time from everybody else.
No, then we're going to.
I may conk out earlier than everybody else, since it's close to 3 in the morning, or it's after 3. But I want to share a story with you all, and it's sort of my third object, really. And that is that outside the windows here, facing the Sierra Morena, there are hydro wires. And the hydro wires frequently come down in the terrible storms that we've had. You may recall that in January and February, there were rolling storms through Spain that did a lot of destruction. And then we actually had snow at one point, and ferocious gales. They're called the tormenta electrica, which is a much better phrase than thunderstorm. And the wires came down. And so, of course, power went out. And power's always winking out here. It's very fragile, our electrical connection. The story is this, that I saw one day a repair woman or a repair person climbing up the hydro poles with her colleagues at the bottom watching. And as she went up, she was reconnecting the wires bit by bit as they crossed over. You could see the crossing over the silhouettes against the hills. And as she was doing that, she was listening to music. She had I think a kind of Alexa or an apps or something that needed batteries, not wires. And I could hear the music here. Wasn't that far away. And she was listening to a combination of flamenco, jazz, fusion, and Miguel Poveda and others. And she was also listening to country music, interestingly enough. But the song that really struck me as I could see her working around the wire connections that needed to be reconnected so that our network would be back was the great, beautiful Jimmy Webb song, Wichita Lineman. And I thought, how, if I had invented it, no one would believe me, but it was true. She was listening to this beautiful song about being online and listening to the voice of a lover. And it was terribly moving. And it seemed to me to be very much the symbol of the moment, listening for one another, trying to hear for one another, and hearing that pulse and that beauty and reconnecting. And I love what was said earlier about Carolin's comments about thresholds and windows. The open doors, open windows, open balconies are among the great symbols of our time. And how do we deal with this now that we have to close our windows and close our doors? And I don't know what the answer is to that, but I've only been out of the campo here once in the last 2.5 months, and the first sign that I saw as we drove into Cordoba was one that said, "Keep safe, stay indoors, don't go out." And but I come back to that image of the repair woman on the hydro poles, connecting and listening, and I imagine maybe she was connecting to someone that he could speak to through the wires. And then a little bit later, our lights came on. We were back into the network transmissions, and we had our images back on computers and TVs and iPhones.
Yeah. Oh, I think terrific. Absolutely terrific. And I think, we will be back to this. I think, if I recall well, we have a few quotes, Marshall McLuhan's quote that we usually take for fostering discussion and thoughts. Let me bring back now my guest. Where are you all, my guests? Here we are. All right. It's nice to see, first of all of you all together in the screen. So thank you. So let's do a short merry-go-round. Because usually after 9, today we are running slightly late, but basically after 9, I do try to foster dialogue and conversation, even with folks on Facebook and YouTube. So folks, feel free to comment and say your share your thoughts. And by the way, but let me say hi to Marshall. It was great to work with Bruce, BW Powe, and thanks to the artists in the streets, Marshall. I do agree. We need to thank artists that make our streets beautiful. And so let's move to the Marshall McLuhan's quotes. Okay, I will start from this. Environments, I think it's Cathy's, right? Environments are not passive wrappings, but are rather active processes which are invisible. I think its medium is the massage, if I'm not wrong. However, the idea is that no, your call, Cathy. Why did you choose this one?
It is directly from that, and in a way, I mean, it has a very similar meaning to the medium is the massage. And it's interesting because I think it really connects with some of what Carolin was saying. When I pulled it out, for whatever reason, I didn't read environments are not passive wrappings. I had read technologies are not passive wrappings. But, at this point, I think it's really important to just think in this media ecological way where media are environments, but environments are media. And so, but what I wanted to say to this, because McLuhan is the probe here, is I wanted to say it's environments are not passive wrappings, but I'm going to add in this other idea, which I ran across a number of years ago, which are environments are interpassive wrappings and interactive wrappings. And interpassive is this unique idea, which is not so much the inverse of interactive, but has this communication that's going on between us and our environment. So let's take a wrap. My clothes here indeed are an extension of my skin, but it keeps me warm. But it also means all sorts of other things, like I'm not naked here. We're all not naked. and it defines this culture that we take for granted. We're oblivious to it, as McLuhan would say, as fish in water. And again, this important moment of able to look around and see what is it that we're taking for granted? What is this culture? What's working? What isn't working? And
what is water? What is water?
And it is water. And you know what? I also just in a moment I was just really loved that little piece that Bruce mentioned about unlettering, and it reminded me immediately of this short piece Ursula Le Guin's in the New Yorker piece called "She Unnames Them," which I think is getting at the same idea, which is to try and get back to this place before we theorize, or what you said, the precepts. And that's what a breakdown throws us into. We have no theory here. We're making it up. Let's not make it up too quickly. Let's dwell here and be reminded of our humanity. I'll stop there.
We have no theory, so we are we are learning day by day. Well, and Jacques, let me bring. I think thank you very much, Cathy. Let's see if we can connect. And by the way, we had a comment from Andrew, which is it says there the section of the minimalism massage can perhaps be clarified. That any technology gradually creates a totally new human environment. And I would say that not only technologies, even the virus can create a brand new human environment. So it's reconfiguring our human environment. So don't take it for granted. Well, your quote, Jacques, it's this one, right?
Yes.
On Spaceship Earth, or in the global theater. I like the idea of the global theater. We are not global village, global theater. We are performers. The audience and the crew become actors, producers rather than consumers. They seek to program events rather than to watch them. Second part, in the need to anticipate events, hopefully, rather than participate in them fatalistically. And the process of public participation becomes a sort of technological imperative. So what's your take on this quote, Jacques?
Well, the last part with the incredible prescience, the participation as a technological imperative, the fact that we have so much technological imperative that's undeniable right now. But what I really liked, and why I wanted to bring that one forward, Bruce has been saying, that of course we're in a moment where we can't begin to predict with confidence. But I love McLuhan saying in the second part of that quote, and you don't get it all that often, the need to anticipate events hopefully rather than to participate in them fatalistically. And I also think that the whole ambience of this drives towards really it's often overlooked, I think, or the whole notion of, this is not the artist who goes to the control tower and simply tells others, Annalie, how things go and what to do. It's a hugely participatory vision as well, so that there may be a sense that we look to some voices or leaders for a humanistic vision, but what's wonderful about McLuhan and what makes him a refreshing and fulfilling resource, I think, you do get that shared governance. I mean, this is a very participatory vision that he is working with here. And I think we can even take it one step further. This is not just to participate kind of passively, and maybe this goes to the interpassive word that Cathy was introducing as less usual. But I think part of the vision is through participation, you also create a kind of change. So your involvement itself creates a change, but it's a kind of meaningful change that would involve everybody. Anyway, that's why I really like the quote, because I think we sometimes see McLuhan. I've often been taken to task and asked well, how could you, he's advocating for this artist in the control tower, this kind of elitist leadership, or someone more refined will have a vision. So it's sometimes seen as a kind of, in terms of what's being said about governance, a kind of short-sighted or even frightening view. But in fact, this idea of our role and our role as being meaningful and even change invoking, so that we don't just use the technology passively, we're making it. So anyway, long story short, that's why I think it's a lovely quote.
Yeah. And I think in this regard, we have another quote that can be connected, I think from Carolin. Carolin, let me bring yours on clothing, right? Here we are.
Yeah.
Clothing as an extension of the skin can be seen both as a heat control mechanism and as a means of defining the self socially. Clothing and housing are near twins. I didn't put the source. I think it's from Understanding Media, right?
Yeah.
There is a book chapter on clothes, right?
Yes. Thank you.
Why did you?
Yeah,
this
and I
one?
have to say the quote itself doesn't say a lot about the situation, but I thought it's a great teaser to develop some discussion on clothing, on coverages, and on openings, and to start talking specifically about masks that we started to get so used to put on our mouth, and rethinking a little bit about breathing and about communication. And of course, and I don't know if of course, but like I'm dealing with architecture, and there is also a very known text, a book of Plasma. I think, I'm not sure if he is Italian, but might be, I don't remember. The book is The Eyes of the Skin, Architecture and the Senses, that talks about architecture as the skin of the body.
Carlo Ratti? No. Carlo Ratti? No.
Oh, what?
Carlo Ratti? No. Anyway, go ahead.
Giovanni Plasma.
Plasma. Okay.
He's Finnish. He's
what?
Finnish.
Okay,
Finnish, F-I-N-I-S-H.
Yes, you're right. You're right. Yes. Yeah, I really like this book. But I want to take the concept of the mask and rethink of it as a silencing technology, and that we can hardly be heard when we are with the mask, and people with hearing loss cannot read our lips. Our smiles are not being seen, and our actual sound is blocked. So the mouth, in a way, has started to become irrelevant. My sister told me about herself going to buy a new lipstick in the coronavirus time with a mask, which sounds to me very, very interesting or an absurd. But it's really interesting that with our communication to the outside, we started to lose that part of our face,
physical,
of our sound. But what I want to take it from here is that masks block our opening, filter the air for us, but also from us. And I'm not sure if to treat it actually as an extension of the body, but yeah, I really like Len Strait in his book, in the media, in this one.
The pink one, yeah.
Yeah. Talks about briefly about how extensions can also be internal, and in a way we've started to extend our breathing and our sound with the mask into us, and became quite authentic, maybe, or kind of close within ourselves. But also, I want to take this idea of extension to talk more of the mask, not necessarily as an extension of the body, but as an extension of society upon the body, or upon me, or all of us, as an extension of the health department, as an extension of the guarding entities. And while I understand the importance of the mask, and I do use the mask whenever I go outside, and it's helpful, I could not miss also the opportunity to talk about George Floyd, who got murdered exactly a week ago. and who police another guarding entity thought that breathing is not a required need or not a necessity. And we are seeing here in that time of coronavirus, and it's not, of course, for a Black and especially Black men. It's in the United States, it's much beyond COVID-19, and it's such a worrisome and harmful situation that I cannot even express it. But the understanding or the misunderstanding that people need to breathe, and where this coronavirus time put us with blocking our air, allowing guards to block air as something will never happen. Bruce talked about closing windows. And it leads me to the concept of the panopticon and Foucault. I don't know how much you've talked already about this in the past, but we are all the time became as people that are being watched and controlled and divided and separated and normalized within the public sphere. And some of us are being kept are part of this anyway, but now we are, even all of us are just very much as part of a panoptic society, if we want to admit it or not. We understand it's healthy in a way, but at the moment that someone deviates in movement, in behavior, in fears, in color, we are put down. So it's interesting. This whole situation led me to rethink of technologies, rethink of power and authority that relates not necessarily just to screens, but relates also to the actual technologies. Ruha Benjamin talks about captivating technologies. I think it's from a book from 2019, and that how much there are certain people, and specifically Black African-American people, that needs to find practices through technologies to hide, to what seems like something that is fair becomes part of technology that dominates us. So in a way, it started to open my mind to all sorts of technologies and how technologies are normalizing us and controlling us, and we accept it because we believe in this. But the situation of the coronavirus time led us to understand how much there are certain populations that were not in the same status and are suffering much more than others.
May I compliment your thoughts in saying that public health is the new panopticon, because with the excuse of the public health, you can do whatever you want. So public institutions can, for the goals of the public health, do something really unprecedented in terms of limiting our freedom and so on. So the public health is a new way of exercising that panopticon approach.
Yeah. Can you share the other quote that I sent? But I sent you in an email. I don't know if it's
I just got one. I mean, I'm sure you. Let me see. I'll find it.
And I can just like read it if it will be easier. What is so? It's Foucault's quote, and Ruha Benjamin starts her book with this. What is so astonishing about the fact that our prisons resemble our factories, schools, military bases, and hospitals, all of which in turn resemble prisons? Question mark.
I got it. And in fact, talking about panopticon, Foucault, and yes, right. It's very meaningful, actually.
Can I just speak up quickly?
Sure.
Canadian perspective, it's the other recognition we're having here, sadly, has been that a lot of senior care, old folks' homes resemble all those places of enclosure. So, with this new news, and truly terrible news, making us aware of other suffering, racial suffering. It in some way clouds the other long-term goal that's become very much a part of our recognition, which is that a lot of things have to change. Yeah, the conditions where we house other people.
Yeah.
Other people. That's an interesting statement too.
Yeah, and I feel that we're dealing so much with screens and with how much we can feel distant or close to one another. But we're kind of missing talking about technologies of the corporeal, technologies that actually touches our body, that actually getting into our body, and all sorts of entities like the police that controlling our body in a sense that we're missing life. And to have Black men telling me that he's just happy that he's alive, and to understand that so many people are just living in fear, and we might need to have a little bit of a shift and to understand other technologies, not what we count necessarily just as the traditional media, in order to understand some power dynamics and what else can we do?
Yeah, I just wonder if it could possibly be. I mean, so no one wants to jump in and think that good, to preemptively say, well, this is the good that comes after the breakdown, that we're moving already in positive directions. But it certainly tells us where the work needs to be done. So many years where, things like making policy has seemed like anathema. Now the recognition is if all of us who are gathering here, if we don't take more of an interest in public policy, we get the kind of world we get the kind of world that we do get. So that kind of notion of responsibility.
No, let him come in. Come in. I want to see your cat.
She's a very beautiful thing. She was going to be my other object that I would show, but then I realized an animal is not an object, so I can't do that.
Yeah. No, we need some cats so we can grow the audience as soon as you put a cat on the screen. But anyways, I just realized. No, thank you, Jacques. I just realized that this is from is Marshall McLuhan from Bruce BW Powe. Transformation, not transportation, right? What's your take, Bruce?
That's been my media mantra for many years, something that my great friend Bill Coons picked up on in a piece he wrote recently. It's very much, to me, one of the keys to what McLuhan was saying, and it's what I've carried with me from all the years that thought about these things and tried to perceive, that communication is understood as merely a transportation instrumentality, a device, a technique. Clouds our perception from understanding that consciousness, sensibility, sensitivity, all these aspects of ourselves are radically transformed by what we make. And it's a time when as I've said, that the village and the theater and the satellite have evolved into the membrane and something beyond that. And the ripples through the membrane through this viral virus time have shown this profound, deep consciousness, sensibility, sensitivity, but also the polarization and the porousness, or what was called so eloquently before, the vulnerability. And it seems to me that this aphorism of McLuhan's speaks volumes about what's not only what we need to carry with us, but understand what's happening all around us at great speeds. The other one that I just posted is one that my beloved friend Eric McLuhan's son, Andrew, who's sort of like a son to me too, asked recently about, in the electronic age we are living entirely by music. And Bill Coons asked too, is when did McLuhan say that and where? I think it's one of his most beautiful statements, most enigmatic, and it has echoes of Walter Pater and Bergson and others. But it seems to me to haunt us because vibration, intimation, closeness, the caress of vibration, the sensuality of the experience that we're having, even when we're isolated, suggests not only music, but also that echolocation, as physics called, that we are everywhere and nowhere. And I've never been able to track down where McLuhan actually said this. He said it in class one day when I was a student there. Paolo's rather dated me, older than I actually am. I was a young student in McLuhan's class, in last class that he gave. And since then, people have asked me, where did this phrase come from? And, in what text does it come from? And I've never found it, nor has anyone else. But it was one of those offhand things that he would say. And frequently McLuhan was at his most brilliant, when he was at his most offhand, at his most gnomic, in which he would say things that were genuinely prescient, prophetic. And this is this sort of spasmodic remark that he would make that suggests that we are living in an time now, in which all things are present, and that we are ripples of one another, and that rippling through light, and fiber light, as you may call it, is a musical vibration that we sense before we can intellectualize or theorize. Again, transformation rather than not transportation. And the third one that I put up there is one of his wittiest remarks. Let's not forget how enormously amusing he could be. And in the future of the book is the blurb. It seems to me to be one of his most insightful perceptions, because what most people seem to know about books, many people seem to know about books these days, is the blurb of it, or the graffiti of it. And it's interesting that people still think of McLuhan as the medium, as the message person and the global village person. But Paolo so wisely said earlier, and all of you have confirmed so eloquently, that was an early stage of his thinking, and that it was evolutionary, transformational, and that it was open-ended. And that one of the things that is beautiful about his work is that one can disagree, one can counter, one can extend, one can expand, but he's always there, absorbing and provoking. I'd like to add one other thing, which is that there's another possibly apocryphal story in the electronic age that complements the electronic age we're living by entirely by music, which is that in 1969, John Lennon came to visit McLuhan Center along with Yoko Ono. And there are so many versions of what happened, but Marshall himself told me that he stopped John Lennon in his tracks by saying that the revolution is over. And John Lennon thought that McLuhan meant the ideological revolution, the revolution of polarized wealth, of course, which is not over, as we know. But no, McLuhan said, you are a representative of that revolution, from the Beatles to Beatitudes. And what he meant was that the revolution is in sensibility. It's in the new consciousness, in the hypersensitivity and porousness, the vulnerability, receptivity that has come upon us. And I think one of the great lessons so far of the viral virus time has been to manifest all of that in such a way that we cannot ignore it. We can't step back and say, well, that's just a hypothesis or conjecture. This is what we are living. And whether we're living entirely by music or probably or by dissonance, the great teacher John Cage and so many other great composers and writers have said that noise and sound and music are all one thing, and that process of listening and attentiveness, receptivity and vulnerability is part of what distinguishes our experience of engagement wherever it is we find ourselves. And I've been suggesting all along in the book I am working on, that sensation is, it seems to me, the first experience that we have. Then percept follows that, and then receptivity. It seems to me, Yoko Ono herself said one of the things she experienced from the time that she was with Marshall McLuhan was the importance of receptivity, and that reception, that capacity to receive, is an extraordinarily powerful and difficult one, and not easy. And then I would put another one on top of that, which perhaps comes from Joyce, which is percept, concept, sensation, and then recept, and then reset, which is that this is where we are, resetting, reconceiving what is happening in front of us. That's why those quotations meant so much to me.
No, I like the idea. No, thank you, Bruce. I like the idea of resetting. And we've been talking about, the breakdown as a way to reset the attitude to make sense of this. That's great. Thank you. And I was wondering, it's 9:46, if I think we have time for a final merry-go-round, getting closer to the end of tonight's Monday Night webinar. So I usually do final remarks from each of our special guests. So firstly, I will invite now folks on Facebook and YouTube. It's your last chance to make a question or share your thoughts with our special guests for tonight. In the meantime, I see people are commenting, Sal, all music and every sound is merely the sound of a drum. I think it's another McLuhan-esque thing over there. So I will start the final merry-go-round and final remarks for tonight's webinar. I think I will use the same merry-go-round. So Jacques, what's your? We've been actually focusing on different a variety of thoughts, but I think there is a fil rouge. This sense of rethinking, resetting, and using perception and maybe arts. You are an expert on how arts and urban environment can foster a new attitude, a new mindset, a new mood, right, in our perceptive approach. So what's your final take for tonight's explorations?
Well, Paolo, my quote was a bit optimistic, so I'm going to step back and be a little bit more reflective and pessimistic.
Okay.
When I was looking at the city, one of the we've lost, all of us. We've given up a lot, and I guess the positive spin is where next, how we see more different ways forward. But I mean, part of this, if we go back to McLuhan again, his comments about the city, the modernist city we've known, we built this city and it's dissolving, the change. And I mean, that used to puzzle me. How could you say that? What would it mean? And then you think about it in city planning terms. Does it just mean that we will not have a center and we will have suburbs, so that the configurations are slightly changing, migrations in that way, or the global connection? But in fact, that's all. The city's dissolving doesn't seem so weird after the last couple of months. So I would leave it with that. Yeah.
And I think we will not. Thank you for sharing that. I think after in the midst of the pandemic, we are rediscovering our cities. Same like Carolin was saying, right? So rethinking the urban architecture in a different way. So the way how we manage the public space, actually, and affecting the way we undertake our social relationships. Carolin, any final remarks about your field of study, your field of interest in the idea of the urban environment affecting who we are, what we do?
Yeah, thank you. I think that I have a lot to say, and I wish I had more time to talk a little bit more, and how for other with other concepts in through Zoom and through screens, we started to lose our body, our head, and the shoulders became who we are in the world. But on the other hand, I see so many people that started to get away from technologies, that are appreciating relationship, the materiality of relationship with others, the going out to the balcony, to going out to walk in the street, to say hello, to and wave to your neighbor. And in a way, a sense of community that is an alternative community that is taking a step away from technology, that started to evolve. And also cities and neighborhoods of starting to have that very special connection of not a global village, maybe even more, but just of a village. And we're learning, I think, to go a little bit backwards and appreciate it, and appreciate the essence of what maybe we used to have with the Gemeinschaft and the sense of the old time.
Yeah, that's great. And by the way, I'm glad that you mentioned that we need more time to discuss, to digest, to share these thoughts. And because we have the highest representatives of the Media Ecology Association tonight, board members and so on, let me just do a little bit of promotion, publicity for the communication choices and challenges, Media Ecology Association 21st Annual Convention, which is going to be online. So we wanted to actually keep hosting, keep running our annual convention. And so it's going to be, you all are invited, June 17, 20th, 2020, online, on Zoom, I think. So you can register, and it's going to be even much more affordable than usual, because essentially it's going to be an online virtual convention. And I think it will be a nice opportunity for, again, keep discussing about how to face choices and challenges in today's communication environment. So thank you, Carolin, for that. Are you presenting, of course, are you hosting a panel at the Media Ecology Annual Convention, Carolin?
Yes. First, I encouraged and helped organize a few women studies or women, issues, topics panels. So these will come up. Jackie is one of the organizers, and Julia as well, and Laura. So we're going to have quite interesting panels that will relate to women. But also I'm organizing with other people, with Peggy and Bernadette and Rachel, a special session that will, I don't know how to say it, but we'll invite people to create a working group for inclusivity in the media ecology field and association, and to open up some discussions on diversity. So this is also something that will come up. We're going to also have a coffee, a coffee time for women scholars in media ecology, and and many more things. I think like the program this year is so interesting and so diverse, and we were allowed to bring many aspects. So I think that online will help us.
And by the way, so thank you for pointing this out. So I just realized that we are 2 weeks away to the annual convention. So I will make some publicity, a highlight on the Media Ecology Annual Convention, even next Monday night webinar, and then in 2 weeks again. So we can. It's a sort of preliminary discussion towards the Media Ecology Annual Convention. And by the way, in fact, Julia Hildebrand just posted mediaecology.org/convention. You will find all information. So thank you for sharing. Absolutely. And talking about another pillar of the Media Ecology Association, Cathy, your final remarks, your turn for a final merry-go-round into this Monday webinar. So, is there something? Of course, now it's your chance to share something that is left behind us. Now, well, your call. What's your final remarks?
Well, I just wanted to pull in a quote that David, one of our audience this evening, brought in. It was from Bertolt Brecht. Art is not a mirror, but a hammer. And I think you put it up before, and it reminded me of actually my favorite definition of technology, no deference to McLuhan. He said, I think it was in his Homo Faber, technology is the knack of so arranging the world so that we don't need to experience it. And I think this is this moment where we can mask and unmask. We can appreciate what this moment is, noticing what's different when we have a mask or we don't have a mask. What we can unletter ourselves, I guess, and just take this opportunity, because we must. It's so clear, as Carolin so eloquently described, we are in this moment of experiencing what it is like to not be able to breathe, to see what it is like for others who cannot breathe. This is fascinating and tragic and quite astonishing, breathtaking, that COVID is bringing us this moment where we cannot breathe. So many of our elders cannot breathe. So many of those who have been forgotten, who are doing all this work for us, cannot breathe. So let's not use this technology to arrange our world so that we can't experience, but instead allow ourselves to find ways to experience it anew. That's what I want to say.
All right.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you, Cathy. Very meaningful. And so our folks, Andrew, are starting thanking Mystic Moon Soul. Thank you for all the insightful conversation. and again, thank you all, because I think this is the magic of that's why I like fostering discussion and conversation, right? Because it's the magic that happens when it's sparking insights and meaningful thoughts. And final merry-go-round, Bruce, BW Powe, your turn from Cordoba, Spain. It's 4 a.m. Only your love for McLuhan,
For all of you.
for the pleasure of conversation could bring you and make you awake at 4 a.m. in the morning. So what's your final 4 a.m. in the morning thought for us?
I wish we had more time to talk about the mask. I think Carolin's observations are very important, and the question of breathing and what we breathe. We haven't talked about, for example, the fact that NASA satellites are showing that pollution is receding, and that in fact people who are asthma sufferers, as I am, are having an easier time breathing, and that it's an extraordinary aspect to things, that the masking has not only begun to create this sort of fictional look again to people and as covering, but also created the importance of uncovering, unveiling again. And let me also quickly just say, from the depths of the Sierra Morena sanctuary, calma, alma, alba, and silencio. But if I could say anything at the end, it would be that all of us are all at once, and all at once is now all of us. And we are going through the I and thou cloud together.
Wow, wow, thank you, Bruce.
Thank
And
you.
well, it's always so it's 10 p.m. perfect timing, but I wish I could move on and on discussing with you, my friends. So it was a very
Thank
meaningful
you, Paolo.
Thank you.
very much.
Thank you.
Extremely
thank you, and
interesting.
let me thank all too many. Wilson, Alfonso, Jean-Francois just arrived, and Kirsten and many others. So let me thank all the folks, because again, so we are a community, and the community really is the meaningful reason for gathering together, for sharing, and for doing what we do. As writers, as academics, scholars, as ordinary people. So really what makes us human, right? The pleasure, the value of getting together, gathering together, and explore who we are and what matters to us, particularly in this uncertain moment. We are learning, and we are looking forward to a better future. So thank you very much. Thank you very much. Have a great
Thank you too.
night.
Thank you, Paolo.
Have a good morning,
everyone.
Bruce. Have a great night. And thank you all on the Facebook, Marshall McLuhan's Facebook page. Thank you on the YouTube, the McLuhan Institute YouTube channel. Next, just a couple of announcements. Next week, June the 8th, Richard Grusin, Andrew Meir, Devin Nosbakken, and Beatrice Polinavalov. And don't forget the to pencil your July the 20th, the Global Village Day, with a great lineup of guests, globalvillageday.ca, to check it out, what's going on. All right. Have a good night, my friends. Stay
Thank
well,
you.
stay safe, stay sage as well. I love it. It was a great night.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good night. Thank you.
Thank you again.
Night.
Thank
Night.
you, Cathy. Thank you, Carolin. Thank you, Jaqueline. And thank you, Bruce. Have a good night.
Welcome.
Thank you,
Ciao.
Paolo.
Ciao.
And thank
Ciao.
you, everyone.
Yeah.
Bye.